Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Wednesday, and it's also November 13th, 2024, and I am live. For those people who may not know, I am Belinda Harris. I am a HR professional, been in the field for over 18 years, almost 20 years actually, 19 years and counting. And I come on and I talk about human resource issues as it relates to employers, to help small businesses, to help them with their HR department. And I also give tips to employees, people who are maybe looking for a job or having issues on the job. I talk about self care and I talk about AI as it relates to human resources. So, we are doing a self care at work challenge. That's what we're doing. And we've started 4 weeks ago. This is our fourth week. So we started 4 weeks ago today because it takes 67 days for a habit to form, for a habit to become normal, for a habit to be ingrained in your system. So I've done a self care challenge before. Before I only did it for 1 week. And this challenge, I decided I was like, we're going to do it for the rest of the year so that not only are we going to end the year on providing self care to ourselves, but we're going to start the new year, 2025, with already having these self care practices ingrained in us. So we'll start on a high note. A lot of times, towards the end of the year, people, kind of start to go down. It's the end of the year. I can lay back and kind of slide into the new year. But we are doing the opposite here at the Self Care at Work Challenge. We are maintaining and then going upward because self care at work is important. Now, I was not here last week because I was sick. So I was not able to go on live. I had a horrible, horrible cold that I'm still, believe it or not, trying to fight my way through. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't the flu. It was just a horrible cold. But I'm feeling better. And I was like, I can't miss another week. So here I am this week to talk about a challenge. So every Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning, I'm going live to talk about self-care at work to kind of set the tone. Going live early in the morning so that you can watch it early or sometime during the day to kind of hopefully get motivated as it relates to the self-care at work challenge. So I want to talk about boundaries. So that's what today's session is going to be about. It's about boundaries, setting boundaries at work. When I was sick, and then, the election was last week, is stress was just coming on top of work. So being sick doesn't mean my work don't stop. People don't say, well, she's sick, so we're not gonna send her no work. That's not how that happens. So work keeps coming. So you're sick, work kept coming, and then the election, the stress of that. And I realized that I didn't have my boundaries in place. And I thought, well, if it's affecting me, maybe it's affecting other people too. So I'm going to talk about how to set boundaries because setting clear and healthy boundaries is one of the most powerful tools in practicing self care. It really is. There are some people who have the gift to set boundaries and their no is no, period, dot. And then some of us work on saying no and then not feeling bad that we said no, even though we really want to say no. We feel bad when we say no. So some of us struggle with that, but some people can say it right on. But we're going to talk about setting boundaries at work. The first boundary I want to talk about is time boundaries, because sometimes we let time get the best of us. And when I'm talking about just time boundaries, a specific start and end time, not just all over the place for the workday. Maybe a specific time where this is when I check emails. This is when I respond to emails. Maybe this is the time that I set a time that I'm not going to be disturbed because I'm focusing on deep work. It's setting boundaries. And sometimes, especially people who deal with a lot of emails or deal with a lot of phone calls or deal with a lot of back and forth issues in human resources, it's hard to say only on this time am I going to answer emails, because I get emails all day long. And some emails are extremely important and some not so much. But to set the boundaries is important as it relates to setting boundaries, time boundaries. So that's one, setting time boundaries, specific start time, end time. Maybe this is the time that I set up, that I answer emails. And maybe this is the time that I'm focused on deep work and I'm not responding to emails. So that's a boundary that you can set up at work. Then there's workload boundaries. And that's a big one because a lot of times, we feel overworked. We may be short staffed and we're doing the job of 2 or 3, sometimes 4 people. So workload boundaries, know your limitations and then communicate that with the team. If your plate is full, say it's full. And maybe when they come and say, can you do this thing? It's hard to say no, but maybe you can, if you can't say no, maybe you can suggest an alternative time. So when they come and say, hey, can you do this? And your plate is full, you can say, instead of saying absolutely not, get out my face, supervisor, because we really can't say that. We really shouldn't be saying that anyway. So instead of saying that, maybe we can say, my plate's full. I can't do it. I won't be able to get to it until I complete this. Workload boundary. So you're saying you're not saying no, but you're not saying yes either. You're saying I can't do it when I finish this. And then because your supervisor may say, oh, well, let me take this, and this off your plate so you can do that. Because, you never know, but you're communicating that. You're communicating your limits and you're communicating that to your team. The third boundary I want to talk about is communication boundaries. You want to establish a preferred communication channel and respond to your team with. For example, in human resources, I always tell people the best way to reach me is email first, then text, then phone, because I'm in a lot of meetings. So it's hard for me to constantly answer the phone. It's easier for me to look at an email and respond, even a text and respond, and I do phone calls. And I tell people, if it's something that you need to talk about, you can email or text, say, hey, when you get a minute, can you call me? Then to just randomly pick up the phone and call me. So I communicate that. So I communicate that to my team so they'll know the channels and the best way to reach me. We use GroupMe. So when we need to communicate to the team, different teams, we use GroupMe, which is another form of text. So we use GroupMe first, we use email, then GroupMe, and then phone call. You are not responsible for others' feelings and reactions towards your boundaries. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in, well, what are they going to say when I put boundaries in place? I have recently set up new boundaries for work and the people that I communicate with. And I don't know how they feel, but I know that the boundaries is best for me and that I'm not responsible for how they feel or how they react to my boundaries. And if they don't respect them or if they respond negatively, that it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them. So when you are setting up boundaries, especially at work or anywhere really, you're not responsible for other people's feelings and reactions to those boundaries. Sometimes that's what's got us here in the first place, trying to worry about how everybody feels when you do things. When you're taking care of yourself or trying to take care of yourself and investing in yourself, you cannot be responsible for other people's feelings and how they react towards the boundaries that you set. So I want to be really clear on that. Some tips to setting boundaries at work is start small. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to go in there demanding this, and this. Maybe start with one boundary or 2 boundaries. Maybe start with, a strict end time for work. At this time, I'm done work. That's it. Or maybe you set a boundary where during this hour, between this hour, I'm not doing any meetings. Maybe that's your boundary, but start small. Don't try to start big and it's just one big, it gets too complicated and too stressful. Start small. Communicate that. Clear and respectful communication is the key. People usually respect boundaries if you communicate them. If you say, hey, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I'm not going to do any meetings during that time because I'm going to focus on blah, blah, blah. When people know that up front, for the most part, people are respectful of that. So you want to make sure you communicate that openly. Then hold yourself accountable. And that's the third tip. And that's easier said than done because it's easy to say, well, it's important. I usually always meet this person at 10:15, even though I said between 10 and 11 I wasn't going to do any meetings. No. Hold yourself accountable to those boundaries and remind yourself on why you even set that boundary up in the first place. Because maybe between 10 and 11, you really need to be focused on something else. And you can't have all these random last minute meetings. So maybe you want to hold yourself accountable. And then the last tip that I want to say is that practice self-compassion. Remember, it's progress, not perfection. There are going to be times where you did do that 10-15 meeting, or you didn't stop at the exact time that you said you want to stop. And that's okay. Give yourself some compassion, because it's progress. And then you try again the next day. That's all any of us can do. Setting boundaries can feel awkward or difficult, but it's really empowering. And they allow you to manage your energy and be intentional about your work, and that you can show up as the best version of yourself, which is what we're all trying to do. That's what self-care is. So I can show up and be my very best self and give my very best self to this task at this time. Embracing boundaries is one of the most embracing boundaries is one of the best forms of self-care that you can practice at work. It gives you more control over your time and your focus, and most importantly, your well-being. So we're adding setting boundaries to our list of things that we are doing for our self-care work. We have the morning routine, right? Which is 5 minutes before we start work. We drink a glass of water. We write 3 things that we are grateful for about work. And we say a quick prayer or affirmation. So our morning routine, 5 minutes before work starts, we get some water in. Let me write 3 things down that I'm grateful for about my work. Think of 3 things. And then I say a prayer or affirmation. And then I start work. Lunch. The second thing, lunch. We do a lunch. We take our lunch break doing no work. Completely no work. No work at all. We commit to our full lunch. No working or handling task. We focus on eating, or if we're having a conversation with someone, a conversation, but not a work-related conversation. Just a friendly conversation. That's our lunch. 1 hour before the end of our day, we pause and we think, what is the one thing that I can do that will end the day on a high note? Maybe it's get my emails cleared out. Maybe it's if I can finish this task. Maybe it's I need to make that one last phone call. Think about that one thing that we can do to end our day on a high note, and we do that one thing so that we can end our day on a high note. And then this week, we're adding one boundary at work. One boundary. Maybe it's we're going to cut off our strict cutoff time for work. Maybe we're adding that. Maybe we add during this time period. Maybe it can't be 10 to 11. Maybe it can be 10 to 10:30, where we don't have any meetings or we don't take any calls because I'm focused on work. But we're going to add one boundary is our new self-care activity that we are adding this week. 4 things: morning routine, our lunch, our 1 hour before we get off work, and now our boundary. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Self-care at work is important. It is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself and for your company that you're working for or that you're working with. Self-care at work is important because burnout is real now, more than ever. It is important that we are practicing self-care at work. It's not too late to join our self-care at work challenge. Send us an email or maybe comment to this post and say, hey, I want to join the self-care at work challenge. I don't text people all week long. I don't like getting random texts all week long. I text one time, once a week. So you won't be bombarded with emails from me, but I will send you a text one time a week. It's on Wednesdays, and it's not early in the morning. It's not late at night because I don't like those either. So I'm very respectful of when I send out text messages. But join our challenge. We would love to have you in our community, our self-care at work community. We're doing it to the end of the year because it takes 67 days for a habit to form, to take shape, to take hold in our system. Self-care at work is important because you are important. I'll see you at work.